Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So, since the Marvel was out, I have seen pretty much every MCU sequel. So far I've seen 9 sequels in the MCU, which apparently there's 10, so I think I have missed one, but I don't think it's that important. But no, so today I'm ranking all the 9 MCU movies that I've seen that are sequels within their movies. So, starting off with number 9 is Thor: The Dark World. It is as bad as everyone says. It is, like, I didn't hate it as much as everyone else, but also I do not hold it in high regard as like, oh, this is such a good comic book movie. I think that there are some good things with Loki and Thor in this movie. I think that there's some good things with Thor and Jane. I think that they have an interesting backstory to sell the ether in this movie. I think that there's some funny comedy and there's some cool action scenes, but there's some stuff that doesn't work, like the whole thing with Selvig running around naked and that sort of stuff was very weird and doesn't fit the tone of a Marvel movie, really. But that's why I have it at such a low point in this list. Now, number 8 is Iron Man 2. Now, this is where I start actually to like the sequels. Iron Man 2, I think it's better than people think. I prefer it more than the first Iron Man, but I like the first Iron Man, but I prefer this one. I like having our introduction to Rhodey mainly getting a new suit. I prefer Don Cheadle in the role than Terrence Howard. I really love Black Widow in this movie, which I think that Black Widow in this movie is incredible. I like the humor with Tony Stark. I love the whole, even though that it is a little silly that like Iron Man's jumping out of an aeroplane, even though that he can fly. But I like the whole thing of him jumping out of the airplane and flying down into the arena and the explosions going off, and then you had the bloody hot ladies dancing, doing the Iron Man, like dancing to Shoot to Thrill. I think that it's such a cool set piece, and I think that there's some cool action scenes. Like the whole scene with Whiplash on the racetrack is so bloody dope. It's so cool, and I love how you have the whole suitcase fight and the whole thing of Tony putting his fist in and laying on the chest and him sitting up like that. I was like, oh my god. And even though that's a pretty weak like file battle in terms of like Whiplash being in a suit, I think that the whole thing with the hammer drones is really cool, and having them like, and actually raises the stakes of the whole thing going like beep 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 near Pepper, and Tony needs to try and get there before it blows up and Pepper dies. I think that that's so cool, and I really like how Iron Man 2 is more fun than the first movie. I think that there's something about the like, I am going to do reviews of the first few Marvel movies that I haven't reviewed from, and that means the entire Infinity Saga and things like Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and the TV shows and stuff. I am going to do those reviews. But I think that there is really cool things in Iron Man 2 that people just look past, and I think that that's very disrespectful. Now, number 7 for me is Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I actually do really like this movie. It's a 4 out of 5 stars for me. But again, the majority of the MCU is for 4 out of 5 stars in different, for different reasons, right? I think that there are some on top of other 4 out of 5 star films that I prefer more because they're more enjoyable. Then there's ones that, not that they're not enjoyable, but they're a little more weak. And Far From Home is around there with Captain Marvel for me. The first Captain Marvel, where it's like, I love the first Captain Marvel, but I think that there is something about those 2 movies in particular that it's just like, I'm gonna I'm always going to rewatch Far From Home because I'm a big Spider-Man fan, but I can understand the flaws of them, type of thing, if you know what I mean. But I love the whole idea of having Mysterio as the villain in this. It gives us something new that we haven't really seen before in these movies. We also have the whole thing of like Tom Holland's Spider-Man trying to not be in Iron Man's shoes anymore and become his own person, even though that you do have the whole thing of him like going through the Quinjet and building a new suit and stuff. You see the elements of them where they eventually get to a No Way Home of John Watts and Kevin Feige planting the seeds of going like, this is where we need the story to go to get to No Way Home. And that's why No Way Home is my favourite movie of all time, is because they planned it out in a way that's like, okay, these movies are how you get to the end game, quote unquote, of No Way Home, right? So, but I think that there's a lot of cool things in Far From Home. I think there's a lot of cool action sequences and a lot of good comedy. I think that there's a lot of cool things that they do with the elementals and those fight scenes. I think that there's like the whole stuff with Nick Fury and Maria Hill as Skrulls. That kind of got me in the theater. I was like, what? They're Skrulls? Because we had 3 of those Marvel movies that year. We had Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Far From Home. So the fact that a few months earlier we actually learnt that Captain Marvel, the Captain Marvel movie introduced the Skrulls, and then it affected Far From Home in a very big way. It's like, oh my god, yes, and that eventually kind of set up, in a way, Secret Invasion. And even like the Marvels and stuff, right? So there's a lot of stuff in there that is really, really cool in that movie. Now, number 6 is where I have the new installment in the MCU, The Marvels. I think The Marvels is such an underrated movie. I knew that people are gonna hate it, but because I feel like that nowadays people just hate Marvel movies just to hate Marvel movies. It's like how they used to. It reminds me how people would hate Star Wars movies just because it's something new and they don't want anything to affect the original trilogy, and they don't want the story expanded. So that's how I feel about Phase 4 in general, but because everyone loves the Infinity Saga, then everyone starts to crap on Phase 4 and 5, except for movies like Shang-Chi and No Way Home and stuff like that, right? So, but I think The Marvels is one of those movies that's like, it's one of the weaker sequels, but I do prefer it than some of the other sequels in the MCU as a whole, right? I think that there's a lot of things in there that are very, very good, and I think that they're really good at capturing like the Avengers level of an event, of tying WandaVision, the first Captain Marvel, and Miss Marvel, and having that Avengers level of event. Well, it's a little it's how I put it. It's like lower than the first Avengers in terms of like impact, but having having a few movies and even, well, a movie and 2 shows kind of pushed into this one movie, and it actually built up very well. And you do get some recaps of like in the movie of like how they show flashes of like WandaVision and the first Captain Marvel and stuff like that, right? So I think that they did a real good job at that. There are some bits that are like, I can kind of see why people would call it too Disney-fied or Disney Marvel, but I think that it worked, right? Because the bit that people would agree that's a bit of like, what the hell did you do? I do agree, like, yeah, that was a bit too far, but it didn't completely take me out of the movie. I was a little bit like Michael Rambeau at the in that scene where it's like, what the hell's going on? But it didn't fully take me out of like, this scene is flat out terrible, you know what I mean? So I think that there's things in there that are really, really good in the Marvels that people just overshadow with the movie as a whole because it's a bloody movie with bloody three kick-ass females in it. So, number 5 for me, this is where you get to my top 5 MCU sequels, and I would not expect this to be my top 5 of MCU sequels, because of how much I didn't like the first one. But number 5 for me is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I love this movie. I think it's so good. I think that, I don't know if it's because I hate the first Doctor Strange so much, that I was like, you can't really do any worse than that. But also, I was so hyped that Sam Raimi was coming back to the comic book movies, to direct Benedict Cumberbatch, and even this, a legacy actor in Patrick Stewart, because he didn't direct the X-Men movies, he directed the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. So, because I'm a big fan of Sam Raimi, and I find his journey through filmmaking very relatable, but also his filmmaking journey is very specific, and not a lot of people can do that. I think that is why Sam Raimi is one of my favourite directors, and I love the majority of his work, right? And I think that there's a lot of things in Doctor Strange 2 that I really appreciate. Like, I didn't like the first Doctor Strange. I didn't really like it that much. I thought it was a little too out there. But I thought that this one, because we're in the multiverse saga, it sets up the multiverse very, very well. And also you have the horror elements in it that honestly really gives vibes of Spider-Man 2, the hospital scene with Doc Ock with the arms and stuff, and grabbing all the doctors and stuff, and getting like those Evil Dead moments with the chainsaw, and almost getting rid of Doc Ock's arms, and the girl with and them behind the scenes doing waxing the floor for the scene where the girl uses her fingernails and scrapes on the floor. Right, I think that there's a lot of moments like that where Wanda's coming out of the bell, like she's looking through the water or the reflective bits when they're trying to get away from her the first time, and she comes out of and it's like she sees America Chavez, and her eyes just open through the water, and it's like, and that legit got me. And then she like comes out the bell, or the, I forgot what it's called. It's not the bell, but comes out of the round thing that they bang on with the stick, and she comes out of that all like skeleton-like, and like cracks her head, and like you see like a crack on her face that like just heals, and it's like, ugh. It's like, that sort of stuff feels like horror stuff that they can fit into the MCU, and not like, it's not something that's out of place in the MCU, you know what I mean? So I think that there's a lot of cool things in Doctor Strange 2 that really nails it for me, and I love that about Doctor Strange 2. Now, number 4 for me, it doesn't help that this is my favourite Ant-Man film, is Ant-Man the Wasp. Ant-Man the Wasp is one of those overlooked MCU movies as well, right? Because it came out after Infinity War. The thing that concerned me when this came out, because I didn't see Ant-Man when it came out, I was too young, even though that the Ant-Man movies are the few movies until I think the recent one, Quantumania. The first two are one of those ones where it's like they're lighthearted MCU movies where they give them a PG, where they're more for little kids, kind of thing, right? So when they do that, because I didn't see any trailers for Ant-Man when it came out, and I didn't see it at the time, I remember seeing the trailers for Quantumania. I'm like, this is PG. How is the MCU going to make a PG movie? Because I was terrified. I was like, is this where the MCU is going to be more for, where this franchise is going to be more for kids now? And no, it had the same lighthearted humor as like the first Ant-Man, most of the other MCU movies had. And I'm like, wow, this surprised me a lot. I love the humor. I love adding Evangeline Lilly as Wasp, and I think Wasp is one of the best female characters in the MCU that has been in a kind of a solo movie, if you know what I mean. Because like Black Widow's not terrible, but she has not one of the best solo movies. But she's better in a group setting, where like Wanda has gone like TV shows and that sort of stuff, right? So I really like that, and I like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it's one of the more underrated MCU movies ever. Honestly, number 3 for me is Avengers: Age of Ultron. Now, I love this movie. I think it's one of the best Avengers movies. Right? I think that the Avengers movie is one of those things where it's like, I like the first Avengers, but I think that the sequels keep getting better, and better. Where it's like, every time I rewatch the first Avengers, I'm like, this is good, but it is a little dated. Well, I feel like Age of Ultron is where it starts to feel like the modern MCU movies, right? And I think it's one of those things where it's like, you feel like that it's the modern MCU movies that you have gone out of Guardians and Winter Soldier and even Iron Man 3, right? Yeah, no, I love Age of Ultron. I think that Ultron is a kick-ass villain. I think that James Spader does an awesome job as Ultron in that movie. I think that the whole thing of setting up Wakanda was really cool, even though that you could tell that they were shoehorning a little bit too much in it. I think that it works though, and I think that's the thing with it. And that's why I love Age of Ultron, because it's like, I feel like that the whole thing of, even though that I would prefer to see Spider-Man in that movie, I love how they did in Civil War. I love Age of Ultron. I think it's so underrated. It's bonkers. Number 2 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The reason why it's the second best sequel in the MCU is because that, now, I am going to go more in depth with this when I do my MCU Infinity Saga and my early years of Phase 4 reviews, right? Is that James Gunn's in the first one, but I felt like that something was off when rewatching the first one again. But when I rewatched the second one, I'm like, this works more than the first one. And I think that James Gunn knew what he was doing, so he turned it up really high and was like, I know what I need to do. So he was like, this is going to be my magnum opus. I'm going to throw everything that, I'm going to see what sticks, and what sticked worked in this movie. I love Guardians 2. I think that Guardians 2, I didn't realize that people didn't like Guardians 2. I love Guardians 2. I think that's one of the, I think it's the second best, like, obviously it's my number 2, the second best sequel in the MCU. But at number 1, we all got to agree on this. Number 1 is Captain America the Winter Soldier. I love Captain America the Winter Soldier. I didn't realize, like, so when I write all the reviews, because I have all the reviews for the Infinity Saga and even not Phase 4 yet, like What If and stuff like that. But I have the whole Infinity Saga ran out in reviews, right? I just haven't recorded or aired them yet, right? But when I did that, which was about a year ago or something, I was like, okay, I'm off to Winter Soldier. I'm scared. Because I like Winter Soldier, but I didn't, everyone loves Winter Soldier, and I didn't know if I fell on the side of like, is it the best MCU movie? I definitely don't think that. It's in my top 5 though. Maybe top 4. Yeah, it is in my top 4. Including shows, right? But no, and I think that when I got around to it, I was like, okay, I'm worried. I wasn't bored, but I felt that it was a smidge slow, but not a lot, right? And I was like, this is so good. So good. Because everyone's like, oh my god, it's the best Marvel movie ever. And I'm like, okay, I agree, it's a 5 out of 5 movie, but it's not the best MCU movie. Like, okay. I'll tell you guys what my 5, because you guys probably know that WandaVision is my favourite of the Marvel shows, but Above this, I have WandaVision, Endgame, and No Way Home. No Way Home and Endgame are my top 2 MCU movies, my top 2 favorite movies of all time, right? Because of the theater experience. Because I didn't have that because WandaVision was a TV show, that's number 3 for me, because number 1, it's one of the best MCU shows that Marvel has done, but also it's because of the event. We were like, Marvel's back, and the theorize and stuff like that. The WandaVision era was the best, and I love that show. I want the Blu-ray Steelbook for Christmas. That and Loki. But Winter Soldier, I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it later. But also, I didn't... Like, I love the movie. Obviously, it's the best sequel. But there's something about it that I was like... This is very, very good. But there's something that's a little off. I think it's just because that there are 3 things I prefer more than this that are missing that have that, like, this doesn't feel off at all. This is the perfect way to do this series and these 2 movies, right? And then when you rewatch the MCU, when you're like, especially in Phase 4 now, where I like things in Phase 4, but not as much as, like, the only 2 things that I have in high regard is Love and Thunder and No Way Home. The other stuff is in the 4, 3.5 range, right? But other than that, and I love Hawkeye, right? So because you have a lot of shows and a lot of the movies that I really like in Phase 4, you can't rewatch the other, like, the early phases, and you're like, this is really good, but it's missing something. I think it's because you don't have the script problems or the weird jokes. Even though I don't mind I like the weird jokes. It's better to not have them than have them. But I love Winter Soldier. I think it's so good. So guys, that is my ranking. Sorry, this has gone for a long video, but thank you guys for watching. I am going to record another ranking video now. I'm going to do my top 10 favorite final battles next time, hopefully. Because I am going to do a bunch more rankings and stuff. So guys, please hit the like button down below if you haven't already. Subscribe. Also the little bell icon to get notified of future videos I make. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon.